everybody, and welcome to Poland Daily Travel. We're here in the Old Town. We're continuing our story of the Warsaw Uprising. This is an important corner. You can see there's a couple of plaques here, and I'll explain why. A particular catastrophe took place here about 2 weeks into the war. This was an edge of the fighting where the Germans did make some inroads and then retreated, but there were barricades here, barricades down all along the roads, barricades all about this part of the city, and that was to slow down the Germans, of course, and prevent them making troop movements, moving some of their heavy trucks and even tanks, at least slowing them down. Here, speaking of tanks, is where the Germans employed a very, very sinister tactic. They used a sort of Trojan horse. That was a tank filled with explosive called a Borg-Ward tank. Borg-Ward tank. They had several of these remote vehicles. One, the smallest one, and the most used one was called a Goliath tank. And I'll tell you a little bit about that one later. But in this particular case, they left this tank, this vehicle, along the street here. It was taken by the Poles and driven about, thinking that they had captured an abandoned vehicle. And in fact, what it was a bomb, a moving bomb. And it was triggered by a radio device. So later in the day, after the thing had been driven around a bit and got to the right position where they thought it would do enough damage, the Germans detonated it. They must have been observing from some particular point or had some way of tracking the movements of it. And when they did finally explode it, this moving bomb, this Trojan horse, 500, in the area of 500 people were killed by the explosion. And it decimated this particular unit. And there's a plaque here, the soldiers of the Gustav unit who were defenders of the Old Town. And they were killed on 13th of August, 1944, right here by this particular bomb, which must have been a huge amount of dynamite or the equivalent that caused so many people to die. Okay, I'll show you something else around the corner. Oh, before I go, let me read this to you. This is another plaque, and it's been put here by the Polish American Defense Committee of California in English, and it says, "The Old Town's defenders, soldiers of the Eagles Company of the Home Army's Gozdawa Battalion, and their commander Stanislav Shednicki fell here in August of 1944. Passers-by, we're passers-by, go and tell Poland that her sons fell here, faithful to her principles, till the last hour." Okay. Right, this is Podvala Street. It's right around the corner from Klinsky Street, where I was telling you that story about the exploding tank. This particular plaque says, again, in English, from the Polish-American Defense Committee of California. During the Warsaw Uprising in August 1944, this building housed the headquarters of the Wigry Scout Battalion of the Home Army. The scouts fought on the barricades in Wola, where the big massacre was. A lot of them died. Old Town and downtown regions of Warsaw, meaning basically where the skyscrapers are today, and, in the name of a free and independent Poland. The scoutmaster, Captain Eugeniusz Konopacki, his pseudonym was Czaszka, was their commander. Okay, and it's worth stating that the scouts played an important part in the Warsaw Uprising. One, because they were already organized, and two, because they were used to being organized and instructed in various techniques, like scouts everywhere, various techniques of, well, particularly surviving, camping, those kind of things, but also firearms and use of various kinds of weapons. That became a natural thing that was taught throughout the Warsaw Uprising secretly to the scouts. So they were like young trainee soldiers, not just the scouts that we know today. And by the way, speaking of young people participating in the fighting, a very important statue over here. So let's walk across the street and go and look at it. Varsovian children, we head into battle. For every stone, we give our blood. This was a popular song during the Warsaw Uprising. And this statue was built as a monument to the scouts and the other young people who fought in the Warsaw Uprising, of which there were many. In fact, the money for the statue was dedicated by a cardiologist who had been a messenger at the age of 14 during the war. And these messengers could be men, women, boys, girls, it didn't matter. And they were absolutely instrumental, also serving as orderlies in the hospitals, and sometimes as combatants. This particular one, while it may be perceived as something as an exaggeration, is not that exaggerated. There were a lot of teenagers fighting in the war, and in fact, one of the first to die was the 15-year-old son of a former prime minister. So that was not unusual. You see him wearing the sort of German captured hat. He's got a submachine gun, and well, it just symbolizes not just the young people who fought for the freedom of Warsaw at the time against, unimaginable odds for an adult. Imagine how the children felt, and yet they persevered. Quite amazing. To me, it's one of the most amazing parts of the whole story is the way the young people were able to sustain themselves and provide such help and aid as was required and necessary during the Warsaw Uprising. Okay, that's all I've got for tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night, another episode about the Warsaw Uprising.